You don't want to be a basher because you might fall in love with the freedom you will feel in the desert, with the friendship you will find as the dusty roads unwind. Yeah, beware, you might fall in love. You don't want to be a basher, it'll hook your line and sinker. You'll be grinning like a kid on a swing. You'll be keen as mustard, even when you're busted. On the CB radio you'll sing, I'm a basher, a dirt and gravel thrasher, driving through the bush for the children. What a way to go, she'll be radio, all around the country we love. Chapter 34, As the Dusty Roads Unwind. In 2008, Meg was to do her 10th variety bash. After that first one in 98, she bought her own car, a 62 Valiant, and then took an all-female crew for the next 8 years from 2000 onwards. It was a huge achievement, and I told her I'd come with her on her 10th bash to celebrate her achievement and because the bash had played a large part in us eventually coming together. I ended up being completely hooked on it, and we continue to do them together now. The experiences Meg and I have had together and the people we've met through the bash are priceless memories. On the way back from the 2012 Variety Bash, which went from Balmain to Bamaga, the top of Cape York Peninsula, the most northern point of Australia, we stopped overnight in Cowan. Cowan is a small town with a population of around 250 on the main road to Cape York and about 550 kilometres northwest of Cairns. After the bash finished in Bamaga, we had to find our way back home either by driving all the way or loading our car on a truck at Cairns. Accommodation in Cowan was completely booked out by bashers, as it was a reasonable distance from the tip for the first day southbound. We had trouble with the car air conditioner and found an old character in Cowan to fix what he thought was wrong with it. It lasted most of the way back to Cairns. That night in Cowan, word had got around that I might sing a few songs at the local pub. It was called the Exchange Hotel, but someone had climbed onto the roof, meddled with the sign, renaming it the Sexchange Hotel. This is highly amusing to tourists, and I'm sure the sign will remain in its altered state. Ad-lib performances of this kind are typically the hardest gigs to do, because there is absolutely no preparation and normally no sound equipment. I eventually plucked up the courage and Meg and I snuck into the beer garden with a guitar in hand. There were a couple of seats kept for us at a table with JPY, John Paul Young, another regular basher. The pub was packed. There was nowhere else to spend the evening in town. There was no backing out now, so I grabbed a bar stool and placed myself in a prominent position. With no sound system, it would have been impossible if I hadn't told them quite strongly that they would have to shut up or they wouldn't hear me. Otherwise I'd go. They all went quiet, and I went straight into Mallyboy. It worked surprisingly well without a microphone. I then thought Crocodile Roll would go down well, considering the number of local Indigenous drinkers who were there. It was going brilliantly when the idiot overweight publican decided to steal my thunder by appearing in drag. This was obviously his regular party trick. Naturally, this instantly cruelled my performance of Crocodile Roll and pissed me right off. It doesn't matter how small the show is. I can't stand someone jumping on my bandwagon when I've done the hard work of capturing the crowd. The dickhead soon realised I wasn't amused and disappeared back behind the bar. I managed to get the crowd's attention again by getting JPY to join me and sing his hit, Love Is in the Air. JPY produced a chord chart and I played it on my guitar. Nothing like a bit of improvisation. A few more songs, then I said I wanted to sing a couple of songs for the blackfellas there. I heard some of the city bashers take a huge deep breath, thinking that I was being politically incorrect, but I knew what I was doing, so I sang 1,000 Feet and Raining on the Rock. The young Indigenous fellas were so thankful, they put on quite a show with their traditional dancing in return. An old black bushman asked me to sing Granny's Little Gunya. I couldn't believe it. I was so annoyed with myself for not being able to sing it without going over it. Obviously, Billy and Dawn Jackson, who inspired the song, were well known and respected by the local mobs. So in spite of being upstaged briefly by the ungracious publican, it was one of those very memorable bash experiences and one that our bash mates won't forget in a hurry. Variety and the bash have become an important part of our lives together. The bash takes us to amazing destinations around Australia while supporting an immensely important cause. I've written 2 songs about the bash since I've been with Meg. The first one was a bit of fun, mainly about the volunteer mobile workshop boys who get us back on the road, and I didn't record it. The other, I'm a Basher. It's on the Big Red. Like most well-known artists, I've had many requests for help or donations from charities and individuals. It's just not been possible to support every one of them, so I've focused on those that I am most passionate about. When Bob Brown contacted me from Tasmania with his vision for the Bush Heritage Fund, I thought it was a great idea. I'd been wishing I could buy some brigalow land just to protect it. Bush Heritage Australia, as it is now known, acquires or buys areas of Australian bush that are of significant conservation value and then manages the land to ensure it remains that way. With limited funds, the purchasers must be carefully assessed for their value. Land that includes endangered species of flora and fauna is a priority. After the release of Warrigal album, I worked out what my song Rip Rip Woodchip had earned as one of the tracks. I decided to donate that money to 3 causes: the Koala Preservation Society of Australia in Port Macquarie, the Malleefowl Preservation Group in Western Australia, and to Bush Heritage. To the latter I sent off $10,000, which was quite an encouraging sum of money in the 80s. Bob Brown was very pleased, as you can imagine. I'm proud to have been in a position to help at the beginning. The Friends of Bush Heritage began to build in numbers and now is a fund that has become a significant player in Australian conservation. Sometimes people generously bequeath their land in their will. If it's not overly special to Bush Heritage, they can put a conservation order on the bush areas, then resell it to raise money for the far more important projects. Over the years, the purchases have been quite significant and will go a long way toward preserving our precious wildlife and bush. It's just one of the things Bob Brown can pat himself on the back for. Some state governments will offer rate cuts if you register your land as heritage, but I don't trust them. Firstly, they'll often add your land to their list of areas that can't be developed, as if it's their own contribution, giving them green credentials. Also, they are known to completely abolish laws and promises made by previous governments, so Bush Heritage is the answer for me. It astounds me how many Australians treat Bob Brown with suspicion and suspect him of being a communist. He has indirectly and directly been responsible for saving a lot of Australia in its pristine state. Our grandchildren will thank him for it. Bob Brown is a true hero, a braver man than I.